Here's what you'll see today. We'll cover the top 5 symptoms of a failing brake booster check valve. Stiff pedal, spongy feel, longer stopping distance, even engine stumble. You'll learn a 2-minute test you can do right in your garage with the engine off, no road drive required. Safety first. If your pedal sinks to the floor, stop driving and get it checked immediately. I'll also show you a quick demo. Pull the booster hose and the valve should only flow one way. By the end, you'll know if a $25 to $55 part swap solves it, or if it's time to dig into the booster or hoses. Skip the guesswork and save yourself shop labor that runs $75 to $150. Stick with me, because this tiny valve isn't just tied to your brakes, it can reach deeper into your engine's behavior too. The hidden link between brakes and engine trouble. Here's something you probably never connected. That check engine light glowing on your dash can actually trace back to your brake booster check valve. When that valve starts leaking, air sneaks into the intake through the vacuum hose. It's unmetered air, meaning the mass airflow sensor never saw it coming. The engine computer thinks it's managing the right volume, but in reality, the extra oxygen leans out the fuel mix. That lean condition is what triggers common codes like P0171 or P0174, and it shows up as rough idle, hesitation, or even stalling at a stop. To understand why, let's step back. Your brake booster needs steady vacuum from the intake to lower the effort you put into the pedal. The check valve makes sure that vacuum stays trapped. It's like a sealed reserve tank that stays loaded even when engine suction drops. That's why, with the engine off, you should still get at least 1 or 2 assisted brake pumps before the pedal goes rock hard. If that reserve disappears instantly, it's a clear sign the valve isn't holding like it should. Now, here's the part that fools people. A cracked or weak check valve doesn't just take away your assist, it creates a vacuum leak right at the intake. That leak introduces unmetered air into the stream, so the ECU scrambles to adjust fuel trims, timing, and idle speed. You'll see it as surging idle, hunting RPM, or random stumble. Trouble codes stack up, and everything points toward a sensor or ignition problem. This is where mistakes start costing money. A lot of owners and even shops chase the wrong repairs. They throw in new plugs, swap coils, or replace oxygen sensors, thinking the lean condition points there. Still the same rough running, hours disappear, parts pile up, and the root issue was a cheap plastic valve the whole time. That's why knowing this link saves frustration. You stop chasing ghosts in the ignition system and deal with the actual leak. The safety angle can't be overlooked either. That leak doesn't just confuse the computer, it also robs you of brake boost. The pedal goes stiff and you gotta press a lot harder to stop. In an emergency, that delay and extra leg force could cost real stopping distance. One failed seal manages to mess with 2 critical systems at once, the engine's fuel balance and your ability to brake in a panic. Here's one way to picture it. Think of the check valve like a dam built with a one-way gate. When it holds, pressure is steady downstream and the town gets the flow it needs. But if the gate leaks, 2 things happen. The town loses water and the upstream river gets thrown off balance. Same here, when the check valve leaks, you lose vacuum reserve for braking and you upset how the intake air is measured. 1 flaw, 2 problems at the same time. So look out for the signs: rough idle, lean codes, stalls when you stop, and a pedal that suddenly feels different. Each of those can trick you into thinking it's injectors, hoses, or electronics. But a leaking booster check valve checks every one of those boxes. Shops see this all the time, hundreds spent chasing the wrong parts, when the fix was the valve sitting inches away from the booster. And that brings us to the next layer in the story. Engine symptoms are only half the picture. The pedal itself will often tell you what's going on, if you know what to feel for. Braking symptoms, that tell a bigger story. When it comes to brake problems, your foot tells the truth faster than a scan tool. The way the pedal feels under pressure can paint a clear picture of what's going wrong inside the system, and the check valve often sits at the center of it. There are 3 pedal behaviors that should raise a red flag right away. First is the stiff pedal. You push down, and instead of light assist, it feels solid, almost like stepping onto a block of wood. That stiffness means you've lost vacuum assist because the check valve, or the hose feeding it, isn't holding suction. Second is the spongy pedal. It doesn't firm up, instead it squishes downward, almost like there's air in the hydraulics. In reality, What's happening is that the valve isn't sealing correctly, air is sneaking into the booster chamber, and pressure across the diaphragm is uneven. That soft feel often gets mistaken for a bleeding issue in the brake lines. Third is the sinking pedal. You hold steady pressure and the pedal slowly drifts toward the floor. That can be a master cylinder leaking internally, but it can also be a failing check valve that's bleeding off vacuum reserve until you're pressing against little to no assist. Now let's break those down further. A stiff pedal shows up because vacuum never makes it into the booster or it escapes as fast as it's drawn. With no stored vacuum, all resistance comes from the hydraulic system alone. It feels like a seized caliper or a collapsed line, but the real culprit may just be a valve that won't hold a seal. The spongy pedal is trickier to pin. Because the valve no longer traps air where it belongs, you essentially get air creeping into the booster chamber. The diaphragm moves inconsistently and the pedal travel feels soft. Many people chase leaks in the lines, swap fluid, and bleed repeatedly, only to find nothing improves. That's because the defect isn't in the hydraulics, it's in the air management on the vacuum side. The sinking pedal raises the biggest safety concern. When you press and the pedal fades down under constant pressure, it feels identical to a master cylinder failing. Sometimes it island. But a weak check valve can deliver the same symptom by draining vacuum from the chamber until there's no reinforcement left. Here's the rule. If that pedal drops all the way to the floor, stop driving and get the car inspected immediately. Don't keep pressing on it, don't test it on the road, get it checked or towed. And here's the kicker. These pedal symptoms can copy other failures. You might blame a seized caliper, a faulty master cylinder, a cracked vacuum hose, or even ABS modulator issues. The list of suspects is long, and repairs aren't cheap. That's why you test the check valve first. It's simple, inexpensive, and often the root of what you're feeling. The danger extends beyond feel. Every time your booster gives less assist, you're forced to push harder and longer to stop the car. Even a small increase in stopping distance is serious when traffic stacks up. At highway speed, an extra few feet can mean contact instead of a clean stop. Think of it like pushing a loaded cart with one wheel locked. You double the effort but get half the movement, and the delay is hard to miss. There's one more diagnostic cross-check worth remembering. If those pedal changes show up at the same time as a rough idle or lean codes like P0171 or P0174, the odds are high you're dealing with a vacuum leak in the booster or valve area. One set of clues stacks right on top of the other, and together they point toward the same weak link. So if your brake pedal starts feeling stiff, spongy, or sinking, and especially if those changes come with engine symptoms, don't waste money on random part swaps. Rule out the check valve first. Knowing how this one piece ties braking power to engine stability tells you exactly where to start, and avoiding guesswork here keeps both systems working the way they should. When it comes down to it, the brake booster check valve looks minor, but carries real weight. If it seals right, the engine stays smooth and the brakes give effortless assist. When it leaks, you burn money chasing sensors, fight with lean codes, and push a pedal that doesn't respond when you need it. Parts are cheap, $25 to $55. A shop swap usually runs $75 to $150. If the valve is serviceable, you can change it yourself in under 30 minutes. Here's a quick 3-step check you can do in the garage. Step 1, with the engine off, pump the brake a couple of times. You should feel 1 to 2 assisted strokes before the pedal firms up. Step 2, pull the vacuum hose at the booster and test the valve. It should flow one way only, blow from the booster side, and nothing should escape back into the engine side, or use a handheld bulb to confirm. Step 3, if air leaks through, replace the valve and grommet, recheck, and if it still won't hold, suspect the booster diaphragm or the hose and move to a shop. Subscribe for practical how-tos and tool-first tutorials you can use this weekend. Drop a comment if you chased lean codes and found a vacuum leak. Straight up, a small part like this makes all the difference in keeping both systems right where they belong.